everybody, and welcome back to Gamecock Central. Kendall Smith and Wes Mitchell joining you here for the recruiting rundown, and we hope that you're all doing very well. Happy Friday to all of you. Happy Friday, Wes. How are you?
I am great. I tell you what, Kendall,
Are you
big,
getting a lot of sleep? New dad?
yeah, enough. It's
Okay,
going, it's
good,
going smooth.
good.
Baby's, knock on wood, sleeping pretty well. Um, she has not liked what she's seen on TV from the Gamecock football team this year so far. But I tell you what, Kendall, we're going to talk about it here in a second. Huge recruiting opportunity for South Carolina this weekend because when you play these SEC battles and when you have number 4 coming into town, recruits want to watch. And all the home games have actually been pretty well attended by recruits this year. But I actually think this is probably the best list we have seen to this point in terms of just high quality, high quantity of top prospects that will be on campus for South Carolina coming up on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, just to reiterate what you said, it is a huge weekend recruiting wise for South Carolina, and we'll get into some specific names here in just a couple of minutes. But before we get there, Wes, I think that it's a question a lot of people probably want to know the answer to just about this weekend in general. And South Carolina has obviously had a rough season up until this point. They're taking on Alabama, and you don't necessarily expect the Gamecocks to win this game. Realistically, you look at the matchup and you're like, all right, it's probably not going to go South Carolina's way. It could, but most likely it won't. Do you worry about having such a big time recruiting weekend when South Carolina is taking on a team like Alabama and might not be able to put on the performance that maybe some of these recruits are looking for? I don't know. Does that concern you at all, or is it more just about the vibe and the atmosphere and the relationships with the coaches and the players?
Yeah, I think it's valid, Kendall. You really just don't want to get blown out with these prospects in town. Now, I don't know if there's an alternative because when you play these games, kids want to come to the games. They you start planning out a schedule if you're a prospect. Some kids, it's more just like, oh, on Thursday, well, where do we want to go on Saturday? Oh, let's go to Columbia. But a lot of these kids, especially the big time ones who are getting invited to just 50 different schools, 50 different games in a season, they start to map out, well, I want to go see, one of the kids we're going to talk about here in a moment. I want to go see Oklahoma at some point, so let me go to that game. I want to go see Texas A&M at some point. Oh, this looks like a good one. Oh, I do want to get back to South Carolina. South Carolina, Alabama, that sounds fun. So they kind of start to map it out at the beginning of the year, their plans for the entire season sometimes. So it's kind of one of those things. If a big-time prospect wants to come to your campus, wants to come to the game, you've invited him. If you're a 5-star guy, if you're a 4-star guy, the invite is kind of open. Come whenever you want. We'd love to have you. So you're not going to be like, nah, we don't want you to come this week because we might lose. I think for one, it sends a terrible message. For, two, it just isn't something you can do. So I think what these prospects want to see is they want to see you compete. Like, you don't necessarily have to win the game. They want to see it be competitive. They want to see, like you talked about, a great atmosphere. If they're a cornerback, they want to watch the DBs. They want to see your DBs play well. If you're a quarterback, you want to see Lenora Sellers play well and put up some points. And so all those things, I think the recruits look at it and watch the game. They're paying attention to much different things than you or I if we were to go watch the game, or if we were just a fan wanting to go be entertained.
Well, you were just talking about watching the DBs. And if you're a cornerback, you're obviously dialed in on that. And that leads us perfectly into our next topic of conversation. We always mention how big recruiting in the state of South Carolina is for the Gamecocks, and they will have 2 massive recruits for the class of 2027 in town this weekend. It's 5-star cornerback Joshua Dobson. He's out of Catawba Ridge High School. And then 4-star edge Jaden Bryan out of Irmo High School. He will be there as well. Obviously, South Carolina wants these guys. We're talking class of 2027. So their time to make a decision is fast approaching. They've still got, a good amount of time, several months. But when you think about when these guys start to make their decisions, you're looking into next summer and into next fall. So that is quickly approaching. What do you think those 2 are looking for this weekend out of South Carolina during their visits?
Yeah, again, to be competitive, I think, for the defense, this defense, for all the other issues maybe South Carolina's had overall, the defense has given them a chance to win games. And these are two guys you can kind of look at. If you're South Carolina, your pitch to them is like, hey, guys, you're plug and play. Like, you're going to come in here. If you come to South Carolina, fill in for some of the guys on this group that by the time you get here, we will be looking to replace. And, both these guys are true kind of superstars. And we've talked about Josh Dobson already on the show quite a bit. Kendall, I think you made the comment, like I have talked probably more positively about Josh Dobson than maybe any recruit that we've ever talked about on here. So Dobson is currently number 3 in the country in the Rivals rankings, already a 5-star. They are very, I would say, cautious about assigning 5-stars very early. There's only a few 5-stars early. And then what they like to do as you get more information, you expand out and assign more 5-stars as you go. They really do not like to have to bump a guy back. You know what I'm saying? So the threshold to already be a 5-star is incredibly high, but Josh is already there. And then you have Jaden Gibson, who already was a blue chip guy, already had some really nice offers, including from South Carolina. But, his ranking has really started to rise as of late. Rivals, they just did an update earlier this week, and they have him as the number 11 overall prospect in the country. So, basically, if this was the end of the process and he was still the 11th ranked player in the country, he would be a 5-star as well. But right now, at the early point in the process, he is a 4-star. So what that means is for that 2027 class, South Carolina is scheduled to host the top 2 players in the state of South Carolina. And then if you add in Nate Carson, who is a 4-star offensive tackle, also at Irmo, so Jaden Bryant's teammate, he's number 4 in the state, according to Rivals, for that class. So you're talking about 3 of the 4 right now, prospects for 2027 in the state of South Carolina, all are scheduled to be on your campus. And then if you go down kind of below, at least in terms of Rivals rankings, there's a bunch of other guys, Ridgeview's Christian Jackson, Jaden Kelly Murray from Somerville, Aiden Gibson from Woodruff, Jaden Worth from Dutch Fork, all guys that are kind of on that borderline 4-star, 3-star, but are being recruited heavily by South Carolina that are in that 2027 class, in-state guys that will all be on campus. So I look at this weekend as kind of a foundational visit weekend for you, where you are trying to make sure with all those guys that you're kind of in that top group moving forward once they start to get into junior days. And then, of course, like you mentioned, fast forward ahead to the summer, official visits and all those things. You want to make sure that you're going to be on the list for all these guys.
Absolutely. And it is so interesting, the state of football right now at the college level in South Carolina. Obviously, South Carolina has struggled throughout the season. So has Clemson. And so it's that battle, obviously, between those 2 schools. But then you have every other major school that is recruiting these guys as well. So we always mention how competitive it is, but it really is so important for South Carolina to not only put a good product on the field this weekend and be competitive, as you said, but also just to have every single factor taken care of, whether that's the atmosphere, the experience with the coaches or the players, or what South Carolina does just on such a large scale to make this a special weekend for these guys. They do a really great job, and we always get feedback from the guys that are visiting of just how well South Carolina does to really try to make it feel like home and make it feel special for each visitor. So we'll have more on that over on GamecockCentral.com after the weekend, trying to talk to some of these guys and get their thoughts on how they feel like their visits went to South Carolina. We're talking a lot of 2027. Let's talk 2026 because it's not 100% done yet. The guys that are seniors this year that will graduate this upcoming spring, is there anybody in the class of 2026 that will be in town this weekend, Wes, that people should know about?
Yeah, other than the guys that are already committed, which we may talk about here in a moment, the guy I circle is probably one of the more intriguing uncommitted prospects in this class, Franklin Whitley from Greenville. Kind of has become a little bit of a story that people that follow recruiting have been attached to. Really did not play football prior to this season. And famously, he's a basketball guy and was going to different camps for football, decided he wanted to play football his senior year, and picked up an offer from Georgia this past summer at their camp, just based purely on this guy is huge and can run incredibly well for his size. So, Kendall, I look at him and I look at Franklin Whitley, and early on, South Carolina took a little bit more of a kind of cautious approach. We want to continue to evaluate, continue to see where he is on our board. Well, they offered, they got him on campus for an unofficial visit. Then he took an official visit this past weekend, and then now he's back scheduled to be on campus this weekend for an unofficial visit. So there's some other schools involved as well. Clemson has offered. Alabama has actually involved too. So I imagine he's looking at this as a chance to see both of these teams in person again. Florida State, I think, is involved. So there's some other schools. But if you are kind of following the visits here, it is interesting to me that he will once again be on campus at South Carolina. Just the familiarity, the chance to be around the coaches again. I think that's something to keep an eye on with that Greenville. Could be an edge, could be more of an interior defensive lineman at the next level, depending on just how big he gets, how strong he gets once he gets into like a college weight program.
One more before we get out of here. You just mentioned it, guys that are already committed to South Carolina. It is so fascinating in today's college football world because you still have to nurture those relationships, right? It's not like, okay, they've committed to South Carolina and there we go. Like, it's done. We know that it's not. It's not until pen is put to paper. And then even after that, with the era of the transfer portal, there's just that constant nurturing that has to be considered with each of these players and the relationships you have with them. So guys that are on campus this weekend that are already committed to South Carolina, Wes, who will that be?
Yeah, and, Kendall, I think it's a great point. Like, typically when we put together these lists, I don't know if a lot of people are looking for like, all right, who are the uncommitted guys that are going to be here? But when you have a season that, let's be honest, has not gone the way South Carolina hoped or expected, other schools are going to try to poach your guys, maybe even more so than usual. So I think it's pretty important. There's a bunch of them. I won't list them all. There's a bunch of them that are going to visit. A couple that stand out to me, though. You're supposed to get Landon Duckworth back in. We know what a big QB recruit he was for South Carolina, how big of a priority he was. When you look at, obviously, the issues that South Carolina's had on offense, you want to try to reassure him, hey, there's a plan to get this fixed. It may not be what we wanted this year, but we're going to get this thing fixed, and you're going to be a big part of it. I'm sure is how you would want to sort of present that pitch to him. But just getting him back around the guys, or back around Shane Beamer, back around the other guys he would, in theory, play with at the next level, I think that's important. I think getting some of these offensive linemen right now, Anthony Baxter, Zion Giles, two of their committed guys are scheduled to be back on campus too. Getting them in after, knowing that Lonnie Teasley is no longer with the program. He was heavily involved in recruiting your offensive linemen. So I think that's important. Several of the uncommitted, like 2027 offensive linemen are coming in this weekend too. Lonnie was as good of a recruiter as South Carolina has on staff. So I think those guys coming in and seeing what the program, like, hey, it's still kind of the same. I miss Lonnie, being there, but I can still see myself at South Carolina. I think that's going to be an important part of this process. And going back to just the overall disappointment, just getting these kids in and around each other and around the program and in the locker room, making sure they're still getting those same vibes and that they're around your staff as much as possible, I think is, how people are going to react. Oh, this guy is falling. We're going to lose all of our recruits, all this. That doesn't necessarily happen. But it does happen if you don't keep recruiting your guys and if you don't stay on it and keep getting them on campus. So I think very important to get these guys around each other as often as you can, especially moving forward. Kendall, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but obviously you've got a trip to Ole Miss, you got a trip to A&M, you got another bye week in there. So this is the last chance for like a home game atmosphere to get these guys on campus for a little while. And as we know, there's a lot that can happen in 2, 3, 4 weeks when all these other schools' coaches are going to be hitting up your guys, I'd imagine, trying to flip them from South Carolina. So it'd be important just to get them in and let them have a good experience this weekend.
It is the last home SEC game of the season. South Carolina will hit the road to Ole Miss, have a bye week, go to Texas A&M. Then you got Coastal Carolina and Clemson back at home. But yeah, there's something about the SEC matchups that really a lot of those guys they like to come out and see what the vibes are like at these games. So it's important for South Carolina this weekend, and really, really important because, as you said, the season is not going as South Carolina had hoped or expected. So you need to make sure that you're putting a good product on the field and that you're also impressing these guys off of the field too, because even with the guys that are committed, like you said, it is an ever like it's ever changing, but it's an ongoing process, recruiting. So we talk about that a lot on the show, and it's certainly something that we will keep you all updated on, even outside of the show over on GamecockCentral.com. So thank you for joining us, everybody. We appreciate it. Happy Friday once again to all of you, and we'll see you back here on the Recruiting Rundown very soon. For Wes Mitchell, I am Kendall Smith. Thanks for joining us here on Gamecock Central, everybody. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you soon. Bye.